Welcome to Suri Cheating Story, where we share true stories of betrayal in love. Our channel brings heartfelt, real-life experiences from those who have endured the pain of infidelity. Whether you're facing challenges in your own relationship or seeking to better understand the complexities of love and trust, Suri Cheating Story is the place for you. Subscribe now to explore the emotional depths in the path to healing with us. Olivia Thompson has always lived a quiet, peaceful life in the suburbs of Chicago, a place far away from the hustle and bustle of the busy city. A former teacher, now retired, she spends her time tending to the garden, reading books, and walking around the neighborhood. It's been 5 years since her husband William died, and in that time, she's learned to embrace the loneliness that permeates her home. The sound of silence had become her constant companion, and although she had long since come to terms with her life, she never expected how drastically things would change when her nephew, Ethan, came to stay with her. Ethan is 23 years old, fresh out of college, looking to make his mark on the world. He dreams of becoming a graphic designer and wants to enter the competitive marketing field in the city. Olivia and William were married just 10 years before his death, and although she and Ethan didn't spend much time together back then, they were always on good terms. So it was no surprise when Ethan called her one evening, his voice hesitant but filled with urgency. "Hey, Olivia," Ethan said, sounding unsure of himself. "I know this is a bit sudden, but I need to ask you a favor." Olivia could hear the uncertainty in his voice, and even before he finished speaking, she knew what he was going to ask. Ethan was in a difficult situation. Without a steady job and struggling to pay his rent, he needed a place to stay while he figured things out. Without hesitation, Olivia agreed and told him he could stay with her for as long as needed. "You're always welcome here, Ethan. I'm sure you'll be on your feet soon," she reassured him. The day Ethan arrived, Olivia spent the morning preparing the guest room. She dusted the shelves, made the bed, and made sure everything was perfect when he arrived. But as time passed, she couldn't shake the nerves rising in her stomach. It had been a long time since she'd shared a house with anyone, let alone a young man like Ethan. She wondered what it would be like to have him under her roof. How would he fit into her quiet, orderly life? Finally, when Ethan drove up in his old, beat-up car, Olivia got out to greet him. He smiled at her, a familiar, welcoming smile that reminded her of family gatherings many years ago. But now something is different. Ethan is no longer the awkward teenager she once knew. He had become a tall, broad-shouldered young man with an aura of confidence radiating from him. He looked great, too good, and Olivia found herself feeling out of place as she returned his hug. "Hey, Olivia," Ethan said, pulling away from the hug. "Thanks for letting me crash here for a while." "Of course," Olivia replied, although her voice was tense and uncertain. "I hope the driving isn't too bad." "No, it's okay. Thanks again," Ethan replied, giving her a fleeting smile before heading inside. During the first few days, nothing much changed. Ethan spends his time in his room or out looking for work, and Olivia tries her best to stay away from him. She didn't want to sound bossy. She knew how hard it could be trying to deal with everything after college. But there was something about having him around that made the house feel different. She noticed the little things, the way he smiled at her from across the table during breakfast, or the way he lingered too long in the kitchen to chat with her about his day. It wasn't much, but the subtle changes made Olivia realize how much she missed having someone by her side. For years, her home had been quiet and empty, but now even the smallest interactions filled the space with a warmth that had been absent for a long time. One night, a few weeks after Ethan moved in, something happened that neither Olivia nor Ethan could have predicted. It was around midnight when Olivia heard the bedroom door creak softly open. At first, she thought she was imagining things, but when she turned around, she saw Ethan standing in the doorway, his face barely visible in the dim light from the hallway. "Ethan?" Olivia muttered, her voice filled with confusion. "Is everything okay?" Ethan entered the room, tall and hidden in the light. He looked confused, his face unreadable in the dark. But Olivia could sense something was wrong. At first he didn't say anything, just stood there for a moment and then spoke in a low voice. "I can't sleep," Ethan said and walked toward her bed. I don't know. I guess I feel a little lost." There was something in his tone that made Olivia's heart flutter. She had always considered Ethan a confident, self-assured guy, but now in that moment, he appeared vulnerable. unsure of himself. Without thinking, she reached out, her hand gently resting on his arm, offering what little comfort she could. "It's okay," Olivia whispered, trying to soothe him. "We all go through tough times. It's just a phase. You'll get through it." Ethan looked at her, his eyes searching hers, and for a brief moment, the atmosphere between them seemed to change. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but there was a tension that lingered in the room. Olivia's heart beat rapidly as she tried to process the feeling. Should she withdraw? Should she say something to break the silence? But instead of backing away, she remained still, her hand on his arm. "Thank you, Olivia," Ethan said quietly, his voice barely audible. She nodded, not knowing what else to say, and watched as Ethan stood up, his eyes lingering on her for another second before he turned and quietly left the room. When the door closed behind him, Olivia lay back on the bed, her mind racing with uncontrollable thoughts. Has something really changed between them? Or is it just her imagination? Olivia wasn't sure, but she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had just happened, it was important. The next morning, everything seemed to be back to normal. Ethan acted as if nothing had changed between them, chatting freely over breakfast about finding a job and making small talk about his weekend plans. But Olivia couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that settled in her stomach. Something had changed in the air the night before. Something unspoken but still palpable. Despite her efforts to brush it off, the tension between them increases. Ethan seemed to be around more often, lingering in the kitchen, engaging in small conversations that lasted longer than usual. It wasn't anything overt, nothing that could be called inappropriate, but it was there, in the subtle way he would glance at her when he thought she wasn't looking, or the way their conversations became deeper, more meaningful than before. Olivia tried to brush it off, telling herself that it was just her imagination running wild. But the more time passes, the more undeniable the changes become. Ethan was always respectful, never crossing any boundaries, but Olivia noticed that he was more aware of her presence. As they passed each other in the hallway, there was a delicate, almost electric moment when their hands touched, just for a fraction of a second, but enough to send a jolt of heat through her body. She told herself it was nothing, a simple accident, a coincidence. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. One evening, after several weeks of strange energy between them, Olivia went to bed early. The house was unusually quiet, with only the sound of the wind rustling outside. She had just fallen asleep when she heard a faint sound coming from the bedroom door. At first, she thought it was just the house being quiet, but then the door slowly opened. She turned over in bed, still dazed, and saw Ethan standing there again, his silhouette enveloped in the soft light from the hallway. "Olivia?" His voice was hesitant, as if he wasn't sure if he should be there or not. She blinked, trying to process the moment before whispering, "Ethan? What's going on?" He entered the room and closed the door behind him, his eyes scanning the space for a moment. There was something in his eyes that was different this time, something deeper, as if he wasn't sure what he was feeling. He said nothing for a moment, and Olivia could feel the air between them thicken with unspoken words. "I don't know," Ethan finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. I've been thinking a lot lately, about everything." Olivia sat up in bed, her heart pounding in her chest as she tried to understand his words. "What do you mean?" she asked softly, her voice even though her mind was racing. Ethan hesitated again, then slowly sat down on the edge of the bed, the mattress slightly sagging under his weight. Olivia could feel the heat from his body radiating into the small space between them. She fought the urge to escape, but instead she remained still, her breathing weak. This felt different, but she couldn't figure out how. "I don't know how to say this," Ethan continued, his voice low, "but I'm feeling conflicted about everything, about us." The words hung in the air, and Olivia's breath caught in her throat. Her mind raced as she tried to process what he was saying. Ethan was talking about their relationship, or rather the dynamic between them that had slowly changed over the past few weeks. "About us?" Olivia repeated, her voice shaking slightly. Ethan nodded, his eyes meeting hers, and for the first time in what seemed like forever, there was an unspoken understanding between them. "Yes," he said quietly. "I don't know when it started, but I can't ignore it anymore. The way we are together, it's different, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like there's something more between us. Olivia's heart pounded as the weight of his words sank. It was the moment she was dreading. She had tried to suppress those feelings, ignore the subtle changes, but now they were obvious and there was no turning back. Ethan was confessing something that rocked her world and she didn't know how to respond. I don't know what to say, Olivia whispered, her mind hazy. This is complicated, Ethan. We can't pretend like nothing's changed, but I don't know what to do about it. Ethan looked at her, his eyes searching for answers in hers, and there was a moment of silence between them, thick with the weight of unspoken emotions. Olivia's heart ached as she looked at him, at the young man who had grown before her eyes, the once awkward teenager who was now sitting on the edge of her bed, vulnerable and exposed. I don't want to rush anything, Ethan said, his voice low but determined. I just need to tell you how I feel. I don't know what will happen next, but I can't keep pretending that everything is the same as before. Olivia nodded slowly, her mind racing with a million thoughts, but none of them made sense. What should she do with this newly discovered truth? How was she supposed to react to these emotions bubbling to the surface? Emotions that had been buried beneath the surface for so long. She felt conflicted, torn between what her heart told her and what her mind knew was right. For a long time, neither of them said anything. The tension in the room was thick, and Olivia could feel the weight of the moment weighing on her. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Ethan stood up, his eyes lingering on her for a moment longer, before turning and walking out the door. I'm sorry, he muttered, his voice filled with uncertainty. I shouldn't have come in here like this. Wait, Olivia called before he could leave. Ethan stopped and turned to look at her. She took a deep breath, trying to stabilize her emotions. We don't need to figure everything out right now, but we can't keep pretending like nothing has changed. Ethan nodded, his expression softening. I know, we'll take it slow. I just need to be honest with you. Having finished speaking, he left the room, leaving Olivia alone with her thoughts. As she lay down, she couldn't help but feel that this moment, this recognition, was the beginning of something neither of them could control. Everything just changed, and there's no going back. Over the next few days, things were different. Although neither Ethan nor Olivia talked about what happened that night, there was a new, almost electric tension in the air between them. It's not in the words they say, but in the way they look at each other, the pauses in the conversation, the subtle changes in their body language. Every look seemed positive. Every moment felt like it was teetering on the edge of something neither of them could define. Olivia found herself becoming more aware of Ethan than ever before. She noticed how his smile lingered longer when he greeted her in the morning, or how he passed her too closely as they moved around the house. She couldn't help but wonder if he felt the same way she did. Sometimes, she caught him staring at her, his eyes intense and filled with an underlying question. Olivia quickly looked away, her heart pounding in her chest. She was torn. Part of her wanted to reach out, acknowledge the change between them, but another part of her was afraid. She knew they were on a beautiful path and the consequences of crossing it could be disastrous. Despite the growing tension, Olivia tries her best to keep things as normal as possible. She kept to her routine, focusing on gardening, reading, and even inviting friends over for dinner in an attempt to distract herself from the emotions that were starting to overwhelm her. But no matter how she tried to fill the silence with other activities, the insecurity between her and Ethan remained. It wasn't until one evening, a week later, that Olivia began to truly understand how profound the change had been. After dinner, she and Ethan were sitting in the living room, just the two of them, watching TV in uncomfortable silence. It wasn't unusual for them to share quiet moments, but this time, the air was thick with something that neither of them could ignore. As night fell, Olivia noticed Ethan glancing at her more often. It wasn't just casual glances anymore. His eyes seemed to be searching hers, as if he were looking for something. Olivia's heart skipped a beat as she realized he was probably feeling as stressed as she was. Finally, after a moment of silent exchange, Ethan put down the controller and turned to face her. His expression was serious, his eyes filled with tranquility. Olivia, he began, his voice gentle but urgent. I don't know what else to say. It's like things are changing between us and I can't keep pretending like nothing happened. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. She had been looking forward to this moment. Deep down, she knew it would come. But now that it was here, she felt unprepared. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and uncertainty. I don't know what to say either. Ethan, Olivia replied, her voice shaking. Everything is so complicated. I never imagined things would turn out like this. I thought when you came to stay, it would only be temporary. But now, she hesitated, not knowing how to continue. Now everything is different, and I don't know what to do about it. Ethan took a deep breath and leaned forward slightly. His eyes locked with hers. I don't want to make this weird, but I can't ignore it anymore. I know you feel it too, Olivia. We both feel this connection, this attraction, and I can't keep pretending it's nothing. Olivia's heart pounded as his words hit her with full force. The words she had been trying to suppress for weeks were finally coming out, and their weight was overwhelming. She'd always considered Ethan a young man full of potential, a good nephew she cared for. But this was different. This had crossed a line that she had not anticipated. I really feel it, Olivia whispered, her voice almost inaudible. But that's what scares me. I can't ignore the fact that you're my nephew. And this, whatever it is, it's wrong. We can't do this. Ethan's face fell slightly, but he didn't take his eyes off her. I know. I understand. I'm not trying to make things harder, but I can't keep pretending like I don't care about you. I don't know how to handle this, but I need to be honest with you. I don't want to be just another stranger in your life, Olivia. Olivia closed her eyes for a moment, trying to push back the emotions that were threatening to overwhelm her. She wanted to tell him that everything would be okay, that everything would go back to normal, that this moment would pass, but she couldn't lie to herself. She knew that everything had changed, and now there's no turning back. She opened her eyes and met his gaze again. I care about you too, Ethan, but this situation is too complicated. We both need time. We can't rush anything. We need to figure out how we're really feeling. Ethan nodded slowly, his expression softening. I understand. I just want you to know that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, Olivia, and I'll be patient. I'll wait. The silence that followed was heavy but not uncomfortable. They both knew that what had just happened between them was a turning point. The truth is now out, and neither of them can pretend it doesn't exist. As the evening was about to end, they both stood up, their eyes meeting again. Neither of them knows what the future holds, but one thing is certain. Things have changed between them, and the road ahead will not be easy. Olivia watched Ethan go up the stairs, his figure disappearing from sight. She stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of everything that had been said. Her heart was still pounding, but now it was mixed with a strangely clear feeling. She knew the days ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she could breathe. The days following Olivia and Ethan's tense conversation were filled with obvious tension. Neither of them talked about the emotional confession they shared, but it lingered between them like a thick fog. Their daily routine continued, but the once comfortable silence between them had transformed into something weighty. And the little moments, those little gestures and glances, were now impossible to ignore. Ethan spends more time out of the house, looking for job opportunities and keeping himself busy with distractions, while Olivia tries to immerse herself in her daily activities. She found herself working in the garden more, planting new flowers in an effort to focus on something that didn't stir up conflicting emotions. But every time she passed his room, or when she heard his faint voice in the living room, the tension returned, clinging to her like a bad habit. There were times when she caught herself thinking about him, wondering what he was doing, what he was thinking. And then there were times when she felt him watching her, his eyes not just glancing, but searching, lingering. It seemed like the distance they once shared was gone, replaced by an unspoken connection that neither of them seemed able to break. It all came to a head one evening when Olivia was cleaning up after dinner. The sun had just set, shining soft yellow light through the window. The atmosphere in the house was filled with anticipation. She was washing dishes when she heard Ethan's footsteps coming from behind. Before she could turn around, she felt his presence. Closer than usual, his warmth radiating from behind her. "Olivia," he said softly, his voice filled with hesitation. She was stunned, her heart pounding. This wasn't the first time he'd been in the kitchen while she was doing something mundane, but tonight felt different. There was something about the way he said her name, something that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She slowly turned to face him, and there he was, standing just a few feet away, his eyes unwavering. "Can we talk?" Ethan asked quietly, his eyes searching hers as if trying to find the words they had both been avoiding for so long. Olivia's pulse quickened, but she nodded. "Sure, Ethan. What's going on?" He didn't speak right away. Instead, he stepped closer, closing the distance between them, until there was almost no room left. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. She should have backed off. She should have told him that this wasn't right, that they were overstepping their bounds, but instead, she remained still, her heart pounding in her chest. "I can't keep pretending," Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I can't keep pretending that this, whatever this is, isn't real. I feel it, Olivia. I feel it every time I see you, every time we talk. It's more than a connection. It's like I can't breathe without you in the room. And I know it's crazy, but I can't stop it. I can't stop thinking about you." Olivia's mind was spinning. His words were dangerous, even reckless, and yet, there was a part of her that wanted to hear more. She wanted to know if he really felt this way, if he was carrying this burden on his shoulders. But the rational part of her, the part that knew the consequences, fought to hold her ground. "I don't understand," Olivia said, her voice shaking. This is wrong, Ethan. You're my nephew. We can't have sex like this. It's not just about how we feel. It's about everything else. The consequences, the people around us, the judgment. This could ruin everything." Ethan's expression softened, and for a moment, he seemed to understand her words. But his determination did not waver. I know how complicated this is, but I can't help it. I just can't ignore what's between us." There was a long silence, during which neither of them said anything. Olivia's mind was torn in half. Part of her wanted to run away from this, push him away and pretend nothing had changed. But another part of her, that part, the part buried under years of grief and loneliness, felt the pull of his words. "Olivia," Ethan said again. This time his voice was softer, almost pleading. "I'm not asking for everything. I'm not asking for us to have all the answers. I just want to know if you feel the same way. If even a small part of you feels the same way." The room was silent except for the sound of Olivia's heart pounding in her ears. She could feel her knees weaken, could feel the flood of emotions she had kept hidden for so long. Ethan was standing very close now, his presence overwhelming her. It would have been easy to lean in, close the distance between them, give in to the feelings building inside her. But she didn't. She can't. "I really feel something," Olivia whispered, her voice barely audible. "But this is not something we can ignore. It's not something we can ignore once we cross that line." Ethan took a step back, a sad smile on his lips. "I know," he said softly, "but I have to know. I have to be honest with you." The moment hung in the air, suspended between them. Olivia felt like the ground beneath her was shifting, and the weight of what had just been said made it hard to breathe. She never expected things to go this far, to the point where her emotions were tangled up in something she knew couldn't happen. Yet deep down, she knew that something had changed, something that couldn't be changed. Ethan turned and walked away, leaving Olivia standing alone in the kitchen, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. She knew that things would never be the same again. The next few days were like slow motion for Olivia. The conversation between her and Ethan hung between them, like a tacit promise, but a heavy burden. She tried to go back to her routine, pretending that everything was okay, but it just didn't feel the same anymore. Every look, every shared space feels heavy with their confession. Ethan kept his distance, giving Olivia the space she needed, but that didn't ease the tension. Every interaction felt tense, and Olivia could sense his frustration, his unspoken desire for something more. She tried to convince herself that things would return to normal, that time would heal the uncomfortable feelings they shared. But the truth is that something has irrevocably changed between them. One evening, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, Olivia found herself sitting alone on her porch. The cool breeze caressed her skin, and she looked into the distance, trying to clear her mind. But no matter how hard she tried to block out thoughts of Ethan, she couldn't. The feelings she had pushed aside for so long had resurfaced, unable to be ignored. Suddenly, she heard familiar footsteps behind her. She turned to find Ethan standing in the door, his face gentle, though his eyes betrayed the tension he had carried for weeks. At first he didn't say anything, just stood there waiting for her to speak. Olivia sighed, her shoulders heavy with the weight of the situation. "I know this is hard," Ethan finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I can't keep pretending like everything's okay. I can't keep pretending that I don't feel that way about you." Olivia closed her eyes. Those words felt like a sharp pain in her chest. "Ethan, I've been thinking about this, about everything. And I know that we can't pretend this never happened. But I don't know what we can do about it. It's too complicated. There are too many people involved, and the consequences would destroy everything. Everything the two of us have built together." Ethan nodded slowly, his eyes filled with understanding. "I know," he replied quietly. "I don't expect us to have all the answers. But I need to tell you how I feel. I can't keep hiding it, and I can't let it eat away at me anymore." They stood silent, the air thick with unspoken words. Olivia knew what she had to do. She couldn't continue this way. Her feelings for Ethan are real but cannot be fulfilled. It wasn't fair to either of them, and it certainly wasn't something she could allow to ruin her life or his. "You need to move on, Ethan," Olivia said softly, her voice filled with sadness. "I think it's time for both of us to let go of these feelings. We can't keep living like this, with this constant tension between us. It's not healthy, and I need to let go of what's holding me back too." Ethan looked at her for a long time before nodding, his expression full of regret and understanding. "I don't want to leave," he said, his voice a little hoarse. "But I understand. I really do." As Ethan turned to walk away, Olivia felt her heart break. She had hoped for a different outcome. Maybe everything would work out, for them to somehow find a way through the mess they were in. But deep down, she knew this was the only choice they had. It's painful, but sometimes letting go is the only way to preserve the remaining peace. She watched Ethan step inside, the door closing behind him. Once again, Olivia sat down on the chair, tears in her eyes. She doesn't know what the future holds, but she knows one thing for sure. There are boundaries that, once crossed, can never be crossed. And sometimes, no matter how much you want something, you have to let it go. As night fell, Olivia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of everything she had just let go. The house was silent, and for the first time in weeks, she felt at peace, though it was bittersweet. She faced the truth, made a difficult decision, and now all that's left is to move forward. If you find this story interesting and want to see more touching, tense, but meaningful situations, don't forget to subscribe to our channel today. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Share this story with your friends, and remember to like the video so we can stay motivated to bring you more great and meaningful content. Thank you for watching and supporting us.